Looking to get all the equipment you need to start trot lining for crabs today, watch this video and I'm going to tell you things that you're going to need to buy to make sure you're the most successful crabber you can be. Now, the number one thing you're obviously going to need is a boat. For me, I like an 18-foot skiff. I think that is the perfect boat to go crab on, but the nicest thing about trot lining in the Chesapeake Bay region, you can crab on almost any boat. I've crabbed on things from 14 feet long all the way up to a 23-foot Sportsman that I had, and they all have their plus and minuses. Honestly, I really didn't like crabbing on the 23-foot boat, and I didn't like crabbing on the 14-foot boat either. 14-foot because it was a little too tippy for my taste, and the 23-foot boat because the sides were too high. And so I really find the 18-foot, skiff, a maritime skiff, Carolina skiff, Boston whaler, is really the perfect boat because you have enough room to be able to store all your gear that you have, and it's nice and stable. So that is, for me, the perfect size boat. But your budget really can dictate what you want to do for your crabbing boat. Now, after you do that, after you pick your boat, this is the second most important piece that you're going to need to figure out. You're going to need to figure out a trotline arm. I've made so many different trotline arms for so many different boats. The easiest way to make it, of course, is to make it out of PVC. But if you wanted to upgrade your experience, you want to upgrade your trotline arm, I made this one, this trotline arm out of different parts, including this stainless steel scoop that I got from my local hardware store, Dyson's. And by far, it's the best trotline arm I've ever had. And I highly recommend, going out and getting something like this because it's going to last you forever. Now, it did end up costing me about $110 to put it all together, but I think it was well worth it and 100% would recommend it to anyone. So the next thing you're going to need to get are baskets. So you're going to want to make sure you have different baskets. Now, you can get those plastic baskets are not actually a bushel. So I'm showing you one of those plastic baskets right now. They're not actually a bushel. They're about 1.25 bushels. So I use those normally as our culling baskets, meaning they're the baskets that the crabs go into when we're running the trot line. And then we put our keepers inside a wooden bushel basket. Maryland Department of Natural Resources wants to make sure that you're catching the proper amount. So keeping in that wooden bushel basket, make sure you're staying within their regulations and their limits. So I highly recommend doing that. Number 3, that thing you're going to need is a net. Now, I've seen so many different nets out there on different YouTube videos, and even when I'm out crabbing with other people, the biggest thing that I say you need is a wire mesh net, not one of those nylon nets when you're trot lining. And that's because if you're trot lining, you're going to be catching multiple crabs at a time, or at least wanting to get the crabs quickly out of your net so you can catch the next one. And those nylon nets could just get tangled all the time because the crabs pinch them. So you need a wire mesh net. Now, depending on what type of line you're going to use, you might want to put like a guard around the wire net. Like most nets that I see now have like that wooden handle, and they're really quality nets, normally in the $60 to $70 range. The wooden handle is really great too because it's very durable and gets the job done. Now we're getting on to probably one of the most important parts of it is a line. So you're going to need your trot line. In Maryland, we can use 1,200 feet of trot line. I highly recommend going to the max and getting that 1,200 feet. I think it's more bang for your buck. I know it's a bigger line to store, but I think it's well worth it to have the 1,200 feet. And there's different types of line, and I'm not going to get into this video, the different types of line that there are, but I recommend getting a line that you're comfortable with. Go talk to your local bait shop, go talk to your local people and see what they're using. And you kind of have to decide if you want to do snoods, which are little drop downs from the line itself, or tying directly onto the line. And that's going to help you understand exactly what kind of line you should get. But you want 1,200 feet, and then you're going to space your baits about every 4 to 6 feet apart, depending on what kind of bait you're using. Now, to go along with those lines too, you're also going to need snaps on each end of the line, and that's going to snap to a chain, which goes up to a buoy, which goes down to your weights. And so that's your whole setup for your trot line itself. And when you're setting it out, you're dropping the weight, you're dropping the buoy, and then the trot line's starting to go out connected to that chain. And on the other side, you're going to drop the buoy and then drop the weight or anchor. And so that's how the trot line goes out. Now, there's a lot of nuance to how tight or how loose you make it. And honestly, I have personal ways that I use with my line of making sure it's tight enough or loose enough. You're going to have to trial and error in it. I think it's easier to have it too tight to start with because it's easier to loosen it up than it is to tighten it up, I feel. So I would recommend when you're putting out that line to make sure that you're, putting it a little tighter than you think, and then you can always loosen it up. All right, so now you got your line out and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna want something to hook it. I use a boat hook to hook it up and put it onto the arm. Some people use their net, and there's just many different ways to do that. You know, you don't really need something specifically dedicated to grab that line. If you got a smaller boat, you might even just reach over and put it on the arm, but make sure that you remember to bring whatever it is you use, because it's gonna be a long day if you don't have something to put it on that arm and it's hard for you to reach it. Now you're catching crabs, you're putting them in your baskets, you're putting all this stuff together. Make sure you have something to measure. That's super important, that you're measuring the crabs a proper way. Now, I don't go, when I'm crabbing and catching crabs for myself, I don't sort them out into jumbos or anything like that. So it's anything that's undersize is going over, anything that's keeper size is going in the basket. So I have a measurement stick that is 5 inches for before July 14th, because you can keep 5-inch and over crabs before July 15th, and then has a 5 1/4 mark for after July 14th, because that's what the size limit changes to. Now for recreational crabbers, we're only doing male crabs unless it's a female soft shell, but for the most part, you know, you're only keeping male crabs. So make sure you understand the difference between those two. Now, while you're sorting through these crabs, you want gloves or even tongs. It's really up to you. Even the best gloves, I feel like you can still feel the pinch through it. It never really bothers me. But if you have someone else that's going on that may be a little sensitive to it, tongs can be a really good idea, because it can kind of keep you, your hands out of that area and make it a little more enjoyable for people that are crabbing with you. And my last tip is, don't forget polarized sunglasses. Sunglasses, and especially polarized sunglasses, make a huge difference when you're crabbing. If you can cut through the glare on the water, you're gonna see the crabs further down the line and be able to net those crabs a lot easier as you're going on that trot line. So that's probably one of the first things I remember to grab when I'm going crabbing is my polarized sunglasses, because it makes a huge difference when you're crabbing. All right, so hopefully this video was helpful, and hopefully it helped you get a really good idea of what you need to do to start crabbing. And for future videos, go into more details about like the types of boats, the way to make the trot line arm, how to space the baits, different baits to use for trot lining, that I'm gonna be putting out on our channel. All right, hope to see you on the next video.